tithe is the first fruits of your increase.
Yes, sir.
It is not the last fruits of your surplus. So
It's the first fruit
many
of
people,
your increase.
many people when they are tithing from the surplus. They are not tithing from the first fruits of their increase. What do we mean by this? The tithe is a ministration of respect and honor to God.
Amen.
Perhaps the greatest show of respect and honor to God is in the fact that it is the first thing you do with your money. The tithe changes in its very nature when it is not done first. So tithe must be given first before you use your money, before you use anything. You don't earn your salary on Friday and then go and buy things and bring your tithe on Sunday. So you are not making the tithe to be the first. The tithe must be given first.
As soon as you cash your check, take your tithe off.
Take your tithe off.
Put it in an envelope.
Yeah.
And set it aside, apart.
Take it to the house of God. You don't keep it with your things.
Oh.
You don't take the tithe, put it aside, and take the money and start using it. Even though you have put it aside, you have not given it. It is still with you. You can be tempted and use it. That's what many people do. Then they end up going to take bit by bit. By the time they reach Sunday, it's no more there. Half of it is gone. But the tithe must be given first before you use anything.
So we should start setting up our accounts in line with the church account, so that there's an automatic deduction.
Especially in the developed world like America. You must do that. People in South Africa, they do that. When the money gets into the account, tithe is deducted. And some people shocked me. They said to me, whenever they have got their deductions coming from their banks, but when they write tithe, it comes out first before any money has been deducted. And that shocked them. They discovered how important the tithe is. And the one who helped them
the banks in South Africa have come to the realization that the tithe is important to the
tithe
people.
Start. Everybody who has made a debit order confirms that tithe comes out first in their bank accounts before any deductions are done. And they are shocked and amazed.
So to the dear listeners right here and those who are out there all over the world, but especially to those who are right here in the Fireplace Church, it's important for us, those who have come to attend the campfire, to know that we can do an automatic deduction to instruct our banks to pay the tithe out.
That's right.
Automatically.
I once went to a certain church of Apostolic Faith Mission in Polokwane, in South Africa. I thought about them giving tithe to be the first. I said, when the money comes into your account, before you use it, deduct the tithe and send it to the church. One lady who was a principal of a secondary school, she wanted a promotion at school. She was not getting it. People were getting their promotion. She was not tithing. But the time she got her money, it was on Monday morning. She went to the bank early in the morning, take out the money and call the pastor and run to the church and give the pastor the money and say, pray for me. And the pastor prayed for her. She went to work. She did that for 3 months. She was promoted without her applying for a promotion. Now she is a circuit inspector. And being a circuit inspector, she where she is staying and where she is working, she doesn't use a car anymore. She just walks.
Did you hear that? It is important to give your tithe first. Whatever you can do to ensure that before you spend, that your tithe gets to your pastor, to your church, do it. If you have to use a cash app or whatever application that your bank has that can allow you to send money from account to account, get the church account number and put it in your phone and use it with the application and send the tithe, so that the tithe goes to the church and does the work of the Lord. So we are listening. Yes, what else is hindering our tithe from being fruitful?
The tithe changes in its very nature when it is not done first. It changes in its nature. This may be the reason why somebody may give 10% of his money but not see the increase. Learn to call the tithe the first and the best.
Yes, sir.
If it's called the first and the best, it will change in its nature. And when God is receiving it, they will start seeing blessings that they haven't seen. Giving the first and the best of what you have is foundational to proper tithing.
Yes, sir.
Point number 3. Tithing does not work for some people because it is not 10% of their income. People, they just tithe. You check them. Go and see how much they earn and go and see how much they tithe. It's not a 10%. 10% simply means, simply means 10%. 9% is not a tithe, 8% is not a tithe, 7% is not a tithe, 6% is not a tithe, 5% is not a tithe, 4% is not a tithe, 3% is not a tithe, 2% is not a tithe, 1% is not a tithe. The tithe is 10%.
Amazing.
So people must learn to calculate 10% when they are giving.
So when they are earning $300 a week, $30 is their tithe.
It must go. It must go before they use the balance. I believe that even someone in grade 3 would know how to calculate 10%. I did that in our church. I asked a grade 4 student to tell me the tithe of 100 rand, and he just did his, and then he said it's 10 rand. I said, you see, a grade 4 child knows 10%, but somebody who is working with a degree doesn't know how to calculate 10%. Do you think that God and his angels are able to calculate 10%? Begin to give at least 10% of your increase, and God's blessing will come upon your life. Tithe is 10% of your increase. That is what God honors. So if people want to be honored by God, let them tithe. If they don't want God to honor them, let them keep what they want to keep. But they will remember.
They will continue.
A day will come. The problem is the day that is coming. It's not now what we're enjoying, but the day that is coming. Okay. Point number 4. Tithing does not work for some people because it is not acceptable offering. People give a tithe, but it's not accepted.
Yes.
Because whenever people are giving, they just think that anything that they give, God is accepting it. It's not like that. When Cain offered his 10%, God did not accept it. The Bible tells me that he rejected his offering and he also rejected him. So God can reject the offering of a person, can also reject his offering. He's got the right to reject.
Yes.
And he's doing that not because he is a God of righteousness. He's a God of truth. He's not just a God like us who can just say, this person is too poor, let him not tithe. God does not work like that. If that was the case, then God would have told, Jesus would have told that poor widow who gave more than everybody not to give because she was a widow.
Yes.
But he ended up saying, this widow has given more than the rest because she gave everything. The widow of Zarephath was commanded by God to take care of Elisha. But the moment she took care of Elisha, the Bible says she did not run short of food for 3 years, whereas she did not have food when Elijah came in. So people are missing out a lot on God because of their shallow thinking. That they say, I went to school alone. When I went to school, no one was there. I woke up in the morning alone. You wake up in the morning, but who allows you to wake up in the morning? It's God. Because the Bible says, when you were born with nothing.
Yes, sir.
When you die, you know all these rich people, when they die, they go to the grave, they leave everything. We cannot bury them in their bedroom. We cannot take their Cadillac to the graveyard. The law of the land will not allow. We cannot take the millions from the bank and say, the owner of the millions have died, let us bury them with. No. Some people who never worked for those millions are going to eat them. So why not tithing? Why
the
not?
People who didn't wake up in the morning to shovel the snow.
The people never wake up in the morning,
car
the ones that are going to eat that.
are going to enjoy it.
Okay, the fact that your money entered the offering bowl doesn't mean that it was accepted in heaven. Some tithes are also unacceptable because the tithe is a special type of offering. There are 3 types of offering that are not accepted to God. Number 1, offerings are not accepted to God because of the unrighteous life of the giver. If the giver is not living a holy life, God does not accept that. People who preach and say, a prostitute can take her money and give to the church and God will bless her. God doesn't do that. A robber will go around robbing people and come and give into the church and they say God will bless. If God will start blessing those monies, then he has changed. He's not a righteous God anymore. So God, when the life of a person is not righteous, God does not accept the offering. The problem is that when people give offering, they don't ask God, did you accept or have accepted? They just give and go. When Cain gave, God told him, I haven't accepted your offering. When Abel gave, they saw the smoke going up straight. He said, no, this offering is accepted. That is why Cain immediately became angry with the brother. Why is God accepting offering, not my offering? He killed him. So today we give money to the church. We don't check whether God has accepted. The other reason why some offerings are accepted because the secret worship of idols. If you are worshiping an idol and you're giving money to God, God does not accept. The church accepts the money, but not God. Because
that's why
God,
their tithe is not working.
That's why it's not working. That's why a person said, I give $50,000, but I get nothing. Yes, it's your life. God is looking at your life. He's not looking at your offering only. He looks at you and your
You
offering.
cannot bribe him.
You can't. Bribery will not enter in heaven. Number 3, not having given in proportion to what we received. A person has gone to work and they received $10,000 and he gives $100. What is that? God gave you 10,000 and you give 100. Why don't you give 1,000? And then a person will say to you, it's because the government have taken the tax. Yes. Give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar. Give to God what belongs to God. God is 10%. Caesar, I don't know the Caesar of America. The Caesar of South Africa is 14%.
Yeah.
So I said, give me my 14%. And God said, give me my 10%. So you find a person say, the government has already taken 14%. I cannot give God 10%. But Jesus said, give to Caesar what belongs to him. That is the government. Give to God what belongs. The Caesar is not going to bless you after giving, but God has promised a blessing. So many people don't want to divide.
He wants to bless what has been left after Caesar has taken the
You know,
portion.
the Apostle Paul says, study to show yourself approved.
Approved, yes,
A
sir.
workman that does not need to be ashamed. Rightly dividing the word of truth.
Yes, sir.
So many people, they don't divide the word of. They just read, but they don't divide. So I'm dividing it for
the
them.
truth.
That's right.
Divide the truth, sir.
I want you to notice these 3 times that the Lord warns us about an acceptable offering. In the book of Isaiah, the Lord rejects the offerings of the people because of their unrighteous life. I want you to read, but I'll read it for you. But all the listeners must write it down and read it in their spare time. Isaiah 1 verse 11 to 17. He tells them, learn to do well, relieve the oppressed, help the fatherless and widows. You see? You tithe, number 1. You also learn to do well. You relieve the oppressed. You help the fatherless and the widows after you have tithed. Now people will tell you, I'm taking my money, I'm helping the father. No. That is unholy stealing. Give the tithe. After that, take care of the widows. You can check in Isaiah chapter 58 when you talk about the true fasting.
Yes, sir. Yes.
It has good
yes.
qualifications.
Yes, it has.
Taking care of the widows is there. Now people say, no, the tithe must take care of the widows. But the Bible says the church must take care of the widows.
Yeah.
You see, when we divide the word of truth carefully, we discover that it is the responsibility of the church.
Yes.
Now, what is the church? The church are the
It's you
people
and
that
me.
are going
Yes,
there.
sir.
So we are the ones who must take care of the widows and the fatherless.
It's not saying the preachers.
It's not saying the preachers. So people misunderstand that. Let us
Rightly dividing the
we
word
must
of truth.
divide the word. In the book of Amos, God rejects the offerings they bring because they were secretly worshipping the gods of Moloch and chewing. That is in Amos 5 verse 22 to 27. In the book of Corinthians, Paul shows that offerings are accepted when they are in proportion to what a person has.